If you live with a constant burning in your feet, a numbness that creeps up your legs like rising water, or that maddening sensation of walking on bunched up socks that aren't there, you have almost certainly been handed one explanation: your blood sugar. And then just as quickly, you were handed a prescription for gabapentin and sent on your way. Maybe your hemoglobin A1C was a little high. Maybe it was labeled borderline. Maybe you were told you were pre-diabetic and that you simply needed to watch your diet. But almost no one ever explained to you the actual molecular crime taking place inside your body. No one told you that excess glucose does not merely irritate your nerves, it chemically transforms them. In over 30 years across anesthesiology, interventional pain, and metabolic medicine, I have held to one principle. Pain is not a diagnosis. Pain is a signal. It is an alarm telling us the terrain your nerves live in has drifted out of balance. Today, we are going to look at the hard biochemistry of how sugar damages nerves, a process so literal that scientists borrowed a word from the kitchen to describe it. The same reaction that browns a steak and caramelizes onions is happening slowly to the proteins inside your nervous system. It is called glycation. Let me explain the chemistry because it is the entire story. In 1912, a French chemist named Louis-Camille Maillard described what happens when sugars react with proteins in the presence of heat. We now call it the Maillard reaction. When glucose floods your bloodstream, it does not wait politely to be used for energy. Glucose is a reactive molecule. It collides with the proteins in your tissues and chemically bonds to them without any enzyme directing it. Over weeks and months, these sugar-coated proteins rearrange into permanent cross-linked structures called Advanced Glycation End-products. The acronym is fitting, AGEs. They literally age your tissue. Your hemoglobin A1C test, the one your doctor uses to track diabetes, is itself a glycation measurement. It tells you what percentage of your hemoglobin has been sugar-coated. If your blood is caramelizing your red blood cells, understand that the same process is happening to the delicate proteins of your nerves. Let us walk through exactly how this destroys nerve tissue through three connected mechanisms. The first is direct structural cross-linking. The long cable-like axons of your peripheral nerves are wrapped in an insulating sheath called myelin and supported by structural proteins. When AGEs cross-link these proteins, the nerve's architecture stiffens and warps. Myelin, that should be flexible and conductive, becomes brittle. The signal that should race down the nerve at high speed begins to slow, scatter, and short-circuit. The second mechanism is inflammatory ignition. Your cells carry a receptor called RAGE, the receptor for Advanced Glycation End-products. When AGEs bind to RAGE, they flip on a master inflammatory switch inside the cell called NF-kappa B. This triggers a sustained release of inflammatory cytokines, tumor necrosis factor alpha interleukin 6, directly into the nerve's environment. So glycation does not just damage the nerve physically, it sets the surrounding tissue on fire with chronic inflammation. The third mechanism is the most elegant and the most destructive. When glucose is abnormally high inside a nerve cell, the cell shunts that excess sugar down an emergency route, called the polyol pathway. An enzyme called aldose reductase converts glucose into sorbitol. This sounds harmless, but it is catastrophic for two reasons. First, sorbitol cannot easily leave the cell, so it accumulates and draws water in, creating osmotic swelling and stress. Second, and this is the key, converting glucose to sorbitol burns through NADPH. And NADPH is the exact molecule your cell needs to regenerate glutathione, your master antioxidant. So in the process of dealing with excess sugar, the nerve cell strips itself of its own primary defense against oxidative damage. The late Dr. Michael Brownlee, in a landmark 2001 paper in the journal Nature, unified these pathways and showed they all converge on a single source: the overproduction of reactive oxygen species inside the mitochondria. Sugar doesn't just damage nerves through one door, it kicks down 4 doors at once, and they all lead to the same place: oxidative collapse and nerve death. This process does not stop at your feet. In the central nervous system, the same glycation and insulin dysfunction that damages peripheral nerves also damages the brain. Researchers led by Dr. Suzanne de la Monte at Brown University have documented this so thoroughly that they coined a term for Alzheimer's type degeneration: type 3 diabetes. The brain fog, the word-finding difficulty, the slowed processing that so many neuropathy patients describe, These are not separate problems. They are the same fire burning at the other end of the nervous system. In the peripheral nervous system, glycation produces the classic agonizing pattern. It begins symmetrically in the longest nerves first, which is why it starts in the toes and feet and slowly ascends in a stocking distribution. The small sensory fibers misfire, producing burning, electric, lancinating pain, and the sensation of pins and needles. The tiny blood vessels that feed the nerves, the vasa nervorum themselves, become glycated and narrowed, starving the nerve of oxygen and accelerating the damage. As larger fibers fail, patients lose protective sensation entirely, which is how a small foot injury can progress unnoticed into a serious wound. Now let me give you the contrarian truth, because there is dangerous misinformation on both sides. On one side, social media tells you that if you just cut carbs, your neuropathy will reverse in a week. That is false. Nerve tissue regenerates at roughly 1 millimeter per day under perfect conditions. If you have been glycating your nerves for a decade, lowering your blood sugar today stops the ongoing damage, but it does not instantly rebuild what was lost. On the other side, mainstream medicine is equally guilty. It treats a slightly elevated A1C as not bad enough to worry about and reaches for symptom masking drugs, while the underlying glycation marches on. Both approaches fail you. The truth is that you must stop the damage and actively rebuild the terrain. If you want real answers, go beyond a single fasting glucose. Ask for your hemoglobin A1C, but also a fasting insulin and a calculated HOMA-IR score, which reveals insulin resistance years before glucose rises. Consider a continuous glucose monitor to see your real-time spikes, and ask about markers of oxidative stress and inflammation, such as high-sensitivity CRP. These numbers map the actual fire, not just the smoke. At Regenerve, we attack glycation-driven neuropathy at the cellular level. Because the polyol pathway strips your nerves of glutathione, we use intravenous glutathione and insulin potentiation infusion therapies to directly replenish your antioxidant defense and stabilize metabolic function. We deploy infrared light therapy to drive mitochondrial repair and improve circulation through those damaged vasa nervorum. We use PEA and C15 lipid supplementation to quiet the rage-driven inflammatory cascade and protect the nerve membrane. And our nutritional counseling and remote patient monitoring keep your glucose stable around the clock, because stopping new glycation is the non-negotiable foundation on which all regeneration is built. Your nerves are not caramelizing because of bad luck or simple aging. They are responding to a chemical environment you have the power to change. Stop the sugar, replenish the defenses, and give the tissue what it needs to rebuild. If this analysis helped you understand what's truly happening inside your body, share it with someone still searching for answers. Visit us at regenerve.com or text us at 314-886-5902. I am Dr. Padda, and I will see you in our next deep dive.